I first found out about this game through the movie Underwater, a movie about a deep-sea drilling station being attacked by sea creatures and ultimately Cthulhu himself. This movie had some alien movie vibes, and the idea of being so helpless underwater at the bottom of the sea was really intriguing to me. After watching the movie, I kept thinking about it. It wasn't the best movie ever or anything like that, but the premise and feeling of the movie captivated me and made me want to know more about it. So the next day I watched various movie explain videos and found some behind the scenes information, even some from the director of the movie. But the first thing that caught my attention was the reveal that the huge sea creature at the end of the movie was actually Cthulhu, something seemingly so obvious, but was actually a subtle addition to the movie. It was never said or even slightly explained. Cthulhu in the movie is only even in a few shots right at the end, and then the movie is over, so it wasn't promoted as Lovecraftian or anything to do with the creature, which was well done in my opinion, but left me wanting more. So after several Google and YouTube searches about Underwater, I then started to look up stuff about Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft, given that I barely knew anything about either, besides simply knowing Lovecraft's name from it being so well known. So of course I found various books and information about Lovecraft, but I also found the game Call of Cthulhu, which got me excited right away, because it felt like it was the perfect remedy for my sudden obsession, something that would appease my desire for more Cthulhu-related content. But me being the cheap ass that I am, and after seeing somewhat mixed reviews, I wasn't prepared to pay full price for the game, even though it wasn't even that expensive of a game. So I actually checked for used copies of the game in my area, messaging several people to see if I could get it that day. I checked Steam, PlayStation, and the Xbox store for sales in the game, realizing I'd actually just barely missed a huge sale in the game only a couple weeks before. I felt defeated and disappointed, thinking I wouldn't be able to play the game right away that night, after spending so much time researching the topic and the game itself. But when I finally logged on to Xbox that night, I discovered that I actually had downloaded the game when it was free through Games with Gold, and I had a subscription going. It was meant to be. All this meaningless backstory might seem pointless to you. I realize that this is just my personal experience that might not be relatable to you, but one of the coolest things to me about the internet, gaming, and just entertainment in general today is how well sharing and discovering works. Again, just really quick, I found out about this game through a random movie that seemingly had nothing to do with what the game was about. To me, that's just kind of cool, and that's the power and one of the benefits of our world today. The ability to discover new things through something else or simply on its own. There are tons of examples of smaller projects that are equally, if not better than some of the mainstream projects that don't get the attention they deserve. So when an opportunity comes up where the smaller things can actually get noticed, I think that's awesome. All this to me is related because without watching this random new movie, I might have never experienced Call of Cthulhu. And even though it's just a game, and my life probably would have went on the same and been just fine, I wouldn't have discovered this new and exciting interest. An interest that not only led me to the video game, but also to the complete fictional works of H.P. Lovecraft. I've even thought about the possibility of making my own Cthulhu-based video game, given that Cthulhu is actually public domain, after becoming fascinated in this world of cosmic horror. When I first started playing Call of Cthulhu, I was immediately captivated. The game was set in such an immersive setting, with everything being so mysterious, even though you knew what the big finale and main point of the game was. The way everything was set up and tied together was executed very well. I do want to say right away that I was slightly underwhelmed with the graphics and animations. There was one part in particular in the starting area of the game where there are a bunch of sailors around the docks that all look the exact same. It's like they just used the same character model and voice, but just changed their outfits and hairstyles a bit. There's also these two thugs that are blocking your way into a building who also look the exact same, and they even have the exact same animations. They both take turns doing the same minute or so animation loop, and I couldn't help but be baffled by it all. In defense of the game though, I don't think it was ever meant to be this crazy detailed, NPC-filled world that should be compared to AAA games. Also, the development of this game was actually taken over by a separate game company. I wasn't able to find too much information on the development of the game, but from what I've read it seems like there was a while where nothing was heard about the game until it was announced that a new studio had taken over. Something I found kind of interesting is that the studio that was first in charge of making the game was Frogwares, who had previously done a Sherlock Holmes game, making them a suitable choice given their detective game experience. But the game was actually finished by Cyanide Studio, who had made games like Styx, Blood Bowl, and various other smaller games. It seems like the reason for the change in development was because there was an issue with the publisher, Focus Home Interactive, and Frogwares. I guess there was some legal issues going on that kind of screwed over Frogwares a bit. But what I found interesting is that Frogwares went on to make their own Lovecraftian game, The Sinking City. This game is somewhat similar to Call of Cthulhu, with a plot about a 1920s setting where a private investigator is trying to find out why he's having strange visions and why the city he's in is mysteriously flooding. So it seems like they had already started to work on the Call of Cthulhu game, and since they'd already started to research the topic and begin development, that instead of just scrapping the idea entirely, they began to create their own story and continue with the story based on Lovecraft's work. I enjoy looking into how games are made, and just thought mentioning this was kind of a cool fact, because a lot of the time these things go unnoticed by the average gamer, but to me, finding out how these games are made just adds to how impressive they really are. Call of Cthulhu is called a survival horror game, which I believe is an accurate definition given that even though most of the game is simply walking around, it's mostly at night, and usually with its omnipresent feeling of trepidation as you uncover cult mysteries, interview various untrustworthy people, while the whole time having the realization that a cosmic being is looming in the presumable future. It's obviously based off the short stories, which are of the cosmic horror genre. The whole time throughout, this theme is present, as you learn more about a cult that worships this cosmic being that simply upon looking at would make you go insane. There are several parts in the game where there is just this creepy feeling in the setting, not knowing what's going to happen next, while also having a few jump scare moments that genuinely got me pretty good. Horror isn't a genre for everyone, and I'm not even necessarily sure that horror is especially for me, but that is the essence of what Lovecraft's work is, cosmic horror. I recall some nights after playing this game where I was somewhat paranoid afterwards, that uncomfortable feeling from the experience still lingering in the back of my mind. But that's why people like horror, right? The uncertainty of what will happen next, the shock value of something scary happening, almost like riding a roller coaster. Even though you know it's kind of dangerous, there is a rush that you get that's different from any normal experience. So I guess for me, that suspenseful, uncertain feeling kept me coming back for more from this game. I kept getting deeper and deeper into this creepy story that I had to know what would happen next. But besides the horror aspect of the game, everything overall had me engaged. Discovering new clues, unlocking small character traits like your detective skills or your knowledge of the occult, walking through the various areas of where the game takes place, etc. I love when something like a game can make me think about it even when I'm not playing it. I feel like that is an achievement when creating entertainment. If you can have someone thinking about your creation and wanting to get back to it as soon as possible, then you've made something special. Which is what this game was able to do for me. I would play this game in short bursts, preferably at night, just to set the mood. So when I would be at work the next day or doing whatever throughout the day, I kept thinking about the mysterious but fascinating world. A world that may look just like ours, although set in the early 1900s. What you do in the game is fairly regular. You walk around, you talk to people, you look around for clues. It's all somewhat mundane with this average gameplay. But what makes the difference is the underlying realization that there's so much more to this average 1900 setting. The big theme behind this game and Lovecraft stories is sanity. How it can slowly feel like it's slipping away into a world of madness and insanity. Just the idea alone of a massive creature with a squid-like face and huge wings with arms and legs that's living deep underwater is pretty insane. But then you mix that with the idea that this creature is actually some ancient being that was here before all of us and some cult wants to awaken it to bring judgment to the world. Now that's insane. In the game you get the option to dive deeper into learning about the occult, and simultaneously diving deeper into insanity, leaving your character to question their own beliefs and mental state. You do also have the option to not delve into the insanity part of the game though. The cool thing about the game is that you can make various decisions and game-changing character upgrades that influence a different outcome to the story and ending of the game. Call of Cthulhu is more than just a game to me. As tacky and over-exaggerated as that might sound, it's true for those who are interested in this type of genre and what inspired the game. This game has opened me up to a new obsession, something I never would have thought I'd be interested in, but with a slight nudge from a B-level movie, an excellent story-driven game, and the actual stories they are based off of, I've become a fan of Cthulhu, and the writer who created it. The concept of Lovecraft's created world is something so uniquely fascinating. It is filled with out-of-this-world ideas and creatures that are so original that people still obsess over them to this day. The thing that amazes me about Lovecraft's work is that these tales are mostly short stories. He's able to bring these vivid works of fiction to life in sometimes less than 100 pages. The story of Call of Cthulhu is only 40 pages, although there are several other short stories that reference the renowned creature. It's just amazing to me to think that such a timeless story could be encapsulated in such a little amount of pages. The thing I think we should all kind of look for today is variety in gameplay, because it's so easy to get sucked into another shooter game. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but with such an expansive world as gaming, it's almost unfair not to experience the endless possibilities that video games present. I look at a game like Firewatch, where there's no combat, no online multiplayer, no enormous open world map. It's just a game where you explore a national park and try to figure out this alleged conspiracy going on. Or a game like Death Stranding, where there is some combat, but the main focus is literally just delivering packages in the most efficient way possible. Or the game What Remains of Edith Finch, where you simply walk around your family's property and experience flashbacks and talk about the character's family. Games like this to me are just as good as some of the big shooter games of today. Because for what they might lack in extensive detail or next level gameplay, they make up for with incredible stories and unique experiences that make playing video games feel like time well spent instead of wasted. I sometimes struggle with the importance of art and entertainment, why we consume so much of it, why we value it, and why it continues to stay relevant, even when it's obviously apparent that there are much more important things going on in the world. But I think the thing that I always come back to, and the point I'm ultimately trying to make, is that art and entertainment is actually able to be more than just something to watch, listen, play, or whatever for X amount of time. People are able to get inspired by these mediums. They're able to create their own work of art after consuming someone else's, and at the very least become possibly interested in something new that brings them even a small amount of happiness, even for a brief period of time. Thank you for watching the video. I know this wasn't like a super in-depth review of the game, but this is the kind of format that I want to try to do for my videos. So if you are interested in that kind of format, then I hope you'll check out some more of my videos in the future. Really quick, the footage at the end of the video was from a game called The Shore. It's a video game based around Lovecraftian Cthulhu stuff too. It looks really cool. I don't really know too much about it, but I thought I'd add a little clip of it at the end. So if anybody does want to check it out, then I think you should. Thanks again, guys.